You ready?
City Attorney? Yes. We don't need to do a closed session.
No, not that. I have a report out at the usual time.
But I was already recused, right?
Yes.
Yeah, ready. Let's do it.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Statement of Values. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and the will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interests of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so that we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. Please be seated. City Clerk, roll call.
Councilmember Caserta. Davis.
Here.
Kolstad. Marsali. O'Neill.
Here.
Watanabe.
Here.
And Mayor Gilmore.
Here. Is there a
Motion to excuse Councilmember Pat Kolstad and Councilmember Jerry Marcelli.
Second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion. And that passes unanimously. We have approval of minutes from October 25th, 2016. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Lights on the motion. That passes unanimously. Approval of the minutes, November 1st, special
Motion to
meeting.
approve.
Second.
Motion second, one abstention. Lights on the motion. And that passes 4 yes, 1 abstention. You have that, City Clerk?
Yes, thank you.
And then approval of the minutes, November 10th, 2016.
Motion to approve.
We have
Second.
motion to approve, second. Any abstentions on this one? Lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Continuances and exceptions. I would like to ask the council, since it appears we're going to have a lot of interest in item 18A, that we move, ask the council's indulgence to move this item up right after special order of business, so right after item 12C. Is there a motion to move up? Motion second. Any discussion on that? Public? Lights on the motion? And we move that item up. That passes unanimously. So first, we have a special order of business. Prior to the meeting this evening, we had interviews in the foyer for a position on the Senior Advisory Commission for the partial term ending June 30th, 2017. And I believe we have come to consensus and have a motion from Vice Mayor O'Neill.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that the council appoint Elphinstone James Birch as the newest member of the Senior Advisory Council.
Second.
Motion second, and we want to thank the other applicants. It was really a hard choice, and we had some excellent applications. So this would be for the partial term ending June 30th, 2017. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or members of the public like to speak on this issue? Okay, and that motion passes unanimously. So congratulations to Mr. Birch. Okay. Yes. All right, so our next item is a presentation of proclamations to acknowledge award-winning educators in Santa Clara. And I'm going to turn this over to Vice Mayor O'Neill, who put this on the agenda, and it's some very exciting. Educators receive some very wonderful awards in our school district. So Vice Mayor O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I wanted to bring to the public's attention that, you know, the city does believe very much in partnering with the school district and also encouraging literacy and education through the wonderful programs that we have at our Santa Clara City Library, and that, you know, education is certainly one of the primary keys to success in our community. So we're going to recognize a few people, and the first is Ellen Core, and she is one of Santa Clara's family literacy librarians, and she works with the Read Santa Clara program, and she was recognized on October 13th, 2016 as the Toyota and the National Center for Family Learning's Family Teacher of the Year runner-up. So we wanted to give her some kudos
Ellen
and
here?
accolades.
She'd like to come forward. We're going to call all three of them up, and then we'll present you with your award.
And Ellen was recognized for her work to reach families struggling with poverty who have limited literacy and/or language skills through the Family and Adult Literacy Program for the City of Santa Clara. And so next, I'm trying to see if I see her here, Angie Scott from Santa Clara Unified.
Oh,
Oh, there you are, there you are. So Angie is the physical education coordinator for the Santa Clara Unified School District. She's worked in the school district for almost 20 years and was awarded the 2016 Santa Clara Unified School District Teacher of the Year Award. And I was privileged to represent Santa Clara at the countywide ceremony where she received her award, and it was announced that she's going on to the state competition for Teacher of the Year. So I think that's tremendous. Angie has led the elementary physical education teacher team to bring quality education to students and to provide essential prep time for teachers. She's going to be piloting a learning readiness education program that will schedule students' most challenging subjects after PE to help them focus and become more successful students. She works tirelessly throughout the city to provide CPR training to almost all 6th through 12th grade students in the district, having trained over 2,970 students, including one student who saved the life of a family member. And also she partners with our fire department with the AED program and raising money for AEDs. And I remember Angie when when I was on the school board and she became a teacher in Santa Clara Unified, carrying on the fine tradition of her much respected and beloved mother, who was a longtime teacher. So we want to acknowledge Angie Scott. And is Jennifer Lee here this evening? I don't see her, but okay, so we'll just read about Jennifer's accomplishments. She's a teacher at Cabrillo Middle School, and she's the director of the 49ers STEM Leadership Institute, and she was recently awarded the Santa Clara County Office of Education's Science, Technology, Education, and Math Teaching Award that is sponsored by Texas Instruments. So it's a very prestigious award that she received, and we really appreciate the great work that she's doing. Ms. Lee teaches advancement via individual determination, which is known as the AVID program, elective courses for both middle and high school students. These electives are for students who need extra support in school and are intended to help students achieve their goals of attending a four-year university after completing high school. So once again, we thank all of you for being such great role models and educators and the people who will help our students achieve success in their adult lives. So thank you, and we have proclamations.
if we could have you come forward here, and if I could have the council come down. What is this, Angie's?
No, that's Jennifer's.
That's not here. Let's go in the middle here, maybe it's easier. See, there's cameras there. Oh my goodness. This is really
Congratulations.
Thank you, and I just spotted former Mayor Judy Nadler there in the hallway. Judy, welcome back. All right, thank you for that. So next, we have the Promotion of Leadership Santa Clara 2017, Leading Santa Clara into the Future. This is a phenomenal program that's sponsored by our city, and I'm not sure who is going to, oh, is Scott here? Scott Summerfield. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Obviously, you have a busy agenda this evening, so I'll be very brief, but thank you for the opportunity to promote the program. I think the best indicator of the success of Leadership Santa Clara is right in front of me. The number of our alumni that serve on the city council, that serve on city commissions, city staff members that have been through the program. It was terrific to see former Mayor Nadler here a few minutes ago. She was mayor when the program began, and the city council's goal at that time was to create an educated, involved, active group of residents that wanted to learn about the city, wanted to learn about the issues facing the region, wanted to learn about the importance of the business community, and I think clearly that has succeeded. We have modified the program a little bit through the years. We're on year number 19 now, hard to believe. We're almost 2 decades in, but we keep it fresh every year. As issues change, as life here in Silicon Valley changes, we adapt the program to meet those challenges as well. We are right in the midst of our registration period right now. We've got about another month or so left. We'd encourage anyone that is interested in learning about the city, the county, local business, the issues facing the region, to consider signing up for Leadership Santa Clara. We have a few scholarships available. Our goal is to not let economic circumstances prevent anyone from participating. Our first class session is January 12th at the Convention Center. We meet right here in the council chambers a couple of weeks after that, and then we're off and running until June when we hold our graduation ceremony at the Triton Museum. Terrific array of topics ranging from transportation to ethics to housing to presenting yourself in public, learning how the media environment is evolving, leading effective meetings, learning about all the various things that make up life here in the city of Santa Clara. So looking forward to another terrific year. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And again, I would encourage anyone to visit the city's website. The introductory letter and application is available on there for anyone that may be interested.
And remind us again when the application deadline is and when?
Middle of
it starts?
December, so we've got about 3-4 weeks left.
3-4 weeks, and it's on the city's website. Where on the city's website?
If you just put leadership in the search bar, it should pop up.
Okay,
Easiest way to get there.
okay.
And Jennifer Yamaguma can also provide applications to anyone that is interested as well.
Okay, thank you. Is
Thank
there
you.
any questions from the council, comments?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you for coming this evening. We appreciate it. Yes, if you'd like a comment to talk about that, please come forward.
Hi, my name's Scott Lane. I'll try to be brief. I just think with all the issues that are holistic that face us, this is, if anyone is involved or wants to be involved in the city of Santa Clara or other cities, some cities have it. It's a 6-month issue. We have literally, between now and 2040, we're going to have 2 million more people moving here. You see a lot of development, a lot of apartments, a lot of everything changing in Santa Clara. But if you want to be the change, if you want to help the change, please come into this. Even if you'd never want to be in city council or a commission or something like that, we need neighborhoods to be vibrant, to be alive, to accept the change. I know in the old quad, we want to try to preserve the historic character. And what I keep telling people is if we don't help design where we want to have high-density buildings, they end up where we don't want them. So if you want Santa Clara to be the best city for the 21st century, this is an excellent place to start. Even if you don't go through with it, at least investigate it, share it. It's open to almost all ages. And so really just a hearty thanks for Santa Clara for hosting this. It is on the website. And the more people that can join this, the stronger Santa Clara will be. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other comments or questions about that? Okay, seeing none, there's no action to be taken on that, so we're going to move on to the item that we moved forward. which is a Stadium Authority item. It's item 18A, Stadium Management Agreement Follow-Up. And this is a follow-up to the meeting we had last week, where we continued the item on the agenda, talking about the potential breach of contract for a week. And I think the city manager will give us a report. And then I'd like to have our auditor from Harvey Rose come forward after that. I have questions on that. And then I'm sure there's a representative from Management Co., 49ers organization. I see some here that maybe, I don't know who would be the designated speaker for that. So, city manager, if you'd like to start, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I'll call you Madam Chair for
It's
the
the chair of the
authority.
Stadium Authority,
And
correct.
members of the board. Just for the information of the members of the public, the city council wears different hats, and for the stadium, they are the stadium authority, and similarly, I wear different hats. City manager becomes the executive director of the Stadium Authority. So last week, after discussion of this item, the council's action was, and I'll read back, is to report back at the November 22nd, 2016 council meeting regarding if the documents outlined in the management agreement have been provided to the Stadium Authority, and if not, directing the preparation of a notification letter of non-compliance. So that was the direction given to staff, and as the executive authority, I am responsible to make sure the management agreement is followed. So with that, myself, the Director of Finance, and the counsel for the Stadium Authority, which is our city attorney, we went to the Manco Management Company's headquarters near the stadium, and the intent was to make sure everything required under the management agreement for the stadium, whether that exists or not. That list was provided to you last week. There were 15 items, and they were divided into two categories. One was, they were supposed to develop documents prior to the opening, because we were handing over the operation of the stadium to them. So we wanted to make sure that as our extension, they have those documents. And then there are other documents, which were 6 of those, which are supposed to be updated annually or provided, or they're supposed to update it annually. So we went there with that in mind, not to review the documents, not to read them, but just wanted to make sure that those documents exist. Now, I would also like to qualify that Harvey and Rose had their own ask of financial documents, which is separate. We did not look into those documents, and Harvey and Rose is here to provide that information, and I believe they were there today, pretty much all day. So I'm just reporting to the board that those items that were listed last time, that those 15 items do exist in different shapes and forms. Now, those may not, like I said, we did not go through each document page by page. As far as the format, whether they meet any test or not, I cannot certify that. All I'm reporting to you is that those items do exist.
City manager, do you have those items in your possession?
No, I do not.
Okay. And is there a reason why you don't have those items in your possession?
That's a very good question. Now, certain things, like I said, the first, as I understand it, the first set of items which they are supposed to just have as our extension, those are not to be really provided to us. We can ask for it as the owner, but those are not in our possession to date, but those can be provided. There are other items which, again, we've been told that there's some proprietary information or there's some sensitive information, and for that reason, those documents have not been delivered to us here in City Hall. But I'm looking at it going forward, whatever is exactly required. When it says provide, it should be provided. And if we're supposed to have something, and I'm making a determination what's proprietary and what's sensitive, and maybe we can remove those items and the rest of the items can be provided to us. So that's going forward.
Okay, so at the moment, you didn't walk out of the 49er Management Co-offices with any documents to bring back to the Stadium Authority Board?
No, we did not.
Okay. City Attorney, can you tell us why there were no documents delivered to the Stadium Authority possession?
Well, I think the intent of our meeting Friday was to verify that the documents were prepared and that at least the fact that that information was prepared by the stadium manager in some shape or form. As I understand it, and Manco can speak for themselves, I mean, those documents are available for review by the stadium authority really as soon as possible. Now, some of the information, as you all know, has been deemed to be a trade secret or proprietary by Manco. It's a subset of all the deliverables that are within the agreement. There's an acknowledgement in the management agreement that some of that information is deemed as such. I think the fear with that information is actually bringing it to City Hall and treating it as a public document will create a public nature of those documents and destroy the proprietary nature of it. Certainly, we can confer with Management Co. as to what we think is public and what isn't. But our mission Friday was just to verify that those documents exist along the bare requirements of the management agreement. Again, separate and distinct from the asks that Harvey Rose made, and I understand that Mr. Goucher is in the audience and he can speak to that.
So have you read the management agreement, City Attorney?
About 100 times.
Okay, so in the management agreement where it says that they are to prepare and deliver documents to the stadium authority, can you show me in the management agreement where it says that we are not allowed to obtain the documents? Because I think it's pretty clear in there what they're supposed to deliver. And keep in mind, this is for a 2.5-year period, correct? I know you said you
Understood.
saw the documents. Did you see the documents for the last 2.5 years?
Understood. There's no question that there are some deliverables in the management agreement.
So have we ever received any of those deliverables for the last 2.5 years?
I understand that some of it we have, and it's been embedded in other documents, and certainly the manager can speak to that, Mr. Ameling can speak to that. Again, each specific document is not designated as proprietary or non-proprietary. I think what the stadium manager has been relying on since 2012, when the management was executed by both sides, is section 15.12 in the management agreement, where the stadium authority acknowledges that some of the information that's used by Manco in the operation of the stadium is in fact proprietary, and we agree that it is treated as such and to handle it accordingly.
So what we're asking for is what is required in the lease, nothing more. The management agreement is nothing more than what's required there. The section 15 talks about confidentiality, but we together decide what's confidential and what the stadium authority keeps confidential or not. Keep in mind, we hire Manco, they work for us, so they don't get to decide what's withheld from the owners of the stadium. And the fact that all these things are required in the lease, and as stadium authority board member, I've not seen a single document for 2.5 years. So I just wanted to know what you came with. I know we're going to talk to the auditor next. Are there any questions for Vice Mayor O'Neill?
Thank you. So, City Attorney, I've read through this agreement to not near, I don't, nowhere near the times that you've read it, I don't have your expertise, but one of the sections that did jump out at me was section 4.12, the ownership of the documents, where it really clearly talks about which documents, what can be considered a Stadco versus the stadium authority, and in effect, really, it gives them license to have copies of documents. Clearly says the documents and software belongs to the stadium authority. And there are those carve-outs that you mentioned about, and as I mentioned last week when I, made the motion to give this extra week to try to get things straightened away, was we're not talking about their proprietary team data. And I understand what they're saying, but there's still, as I said, I think it's pretty clear, particularly if you read section 4.12, that we're not talking about all of there's those exclusions that are in there about NFL game day info and all that. That's, I might be curious, but that's not right now what we're focused on. So
Certainly, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, certainly, by proprietary, I don't mean to suggest that we don't own it. Certainly, the fear is that, and again, I don't know that in the management agreement, each separate document is designated as proprietary or non-proprietary, but assuming that it may or may not have a proprietary factor in the information, I think the fear is if it's treating it as a public document would make that information subject to being in the public domain, which would hurt our competitive advantage in the marketplace. Certainly, that does not mean to suggest that it's not available for review by the Stadium Authority.
Okay, thank you.
So how are we, as a Stadium Authority Board, supposed to review the documents if it's not delivered to the Stadium Authority as required in the management agreement?
Let me try to start. That's a very good question, Madam Chair.
Oh, that's okay, guys.
Give me an opportunity to answer. So while the documents are not with us, in the past, my understanding is those have been provided for staff to go there and review, and certain documents have been reviewed by staff at their location while they don't exist here.
Okay, but I'm talking about the Stadium Authority Board. We look at budgets. We are responsible to the community, elected representatives. And if we cannot see the documents, and I know Vice Mayor O'Neill, Councilmember Davis, and I have been asking for well over a year for these documents, and lo and behold, they don't exist. So how are we to know that we are managing this public asset in the proper manner if we cannot get the documents from the management company that we hire to manage the stadium? Because you can't just have the management company declare that something's confidential to avoid the law, to avoid the contract. They can't just say it's confidential and to avoid all this. That doesn't fly with the terms and the legal requirements in this management agreement. And at this point, we are supposed to be making decisions about the stadium, and we haven't seen a single document that's required in this agreement in 2.5 years. So please tell me, how are we supposed to make educated decisions on this stadium management when we don't have the documents? And you're saying, I went there, I saw them, I don't know what they say, I don't know what they mean, but they're there because there's, I guess, titles saying that these are there. How are we supposed to view these documents? Maybe City Attorney, that's a question for you.
Mayor, Management Co. can speak for themselves, but as I understand it, they are already willing and able to provide that information, proprietary or not, at a mutually convenient time and place, even if it's City Hall, of that information. But again, assuming that some of the information is proprietary, I think Management Co.'s ask is that it be treated as such and not distributed publicly.
Well, the documents need to be here at City Hall for the Stadium Authority as required by the agreement. And I think that's the reason that we are, no, it's okay, guys. I think that's the reason that I'm hoping at the end of this exercise this evening that maybe Management Co. will take us seriously by sending the legal notice to get the documents, because it's been such a struggle for 2.5 years. Our auditors haven't really even started auditing because they can't even get the information. It's this difficult to get the information. I can't wait to see what the audit's going to say. So could we please call the auditor up now? I think, oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Caserta. I apologize.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. I had a question. Vice Mayor O'Neill cited 412, and you cited 1512. Isn't there a way where we can get these documents and we do business in closed session all the time?
No, there would be no closed session exception just to review documents. Just assuming that a certain piece of information is proprietary, and again, I'm not referring to any specific piece of information. The fear is that under the Public Records Act, if in fact they are in the custody of the city on a full-time basis, they would thereby be created into public records, which would be subject to public records requests.
And then if we decide tonight to trigger a 30-day letter, I know the answer to this, and I'm sure my colleagues do, but just for public consumption, what would have to happen then for us to consider changing management? Would it have to be 2 of the 3 entities to agree, or all 3, or 1 out of 3? Can you please clarify that?
Well, I think we're skipping ahead to the termination provisions of the agreement, which are in Article 8 of the management agreement. Just assuming if there was some sort of breach, first of all, you refer to the fact that it is a 3-party agreement, and 2 of the parties can't terminate a 3-party agreement. You'd need the consent of the 3rd party, which in this case is the stadium company, i.e. Stadco. There's also, it's not a matter of putting Management Co. in default for 30 days, and if it's not cured, then the contract is terminated. There are very specific provisions in Article 8. I don't have it right in front of me at the moment, but the mere failure to provide a document does not trigger a default under the management agreement. It has to be really almost a fraudulent or intentional act under that agreement, and there's other specific provisions as well, but it's a very, very specific termination provision in the management agreement.
So if Manco is acting in good faith, I mean, Madam Mayor, I don't know how we conduct meetings. When
No,
people are
please,
able to
just
No,
finish.
I
know-
don't feel comfortable when I have people.
No, I appreciate that. I let a lot happen last week, too, so I'm trying to, if you just please finish
I
your
try,
work.
but when people in the audience are this, it's not how to conduct a meeting. So I would just ask for discretion. Last week when people clapped for some of us, I asked not to do that as well. And I mean, please, I just would like you to please, thank you, Madam Mayor. So again, my question was the question of good faith. Can you please clarify what good faith is?
Well, that's in section 11.1.2 of the management agreement, and essentially, if we were to put Management Co. Under a 30-day notice scenario, that section basically says that if that party can reasonably expected to cure I hesitate to use the term default, but cure that deficiency within 120 days after the notice, then you move on to Section 8 of the agreement where we just discussed, where there's very specific provisions for termination of the agreement. I'm sure Management Co.'s counsel is here tonight and maybe can go into more detail on that.
In some, again, and then one more question, I'll ask this of the auditor too, is if these documents are given to us, that is public consumption because it's something, again, that will be given to us outside of closed session, and it would be something that anyone could request for the.
Again, we have not agreed with Management Co. on specific information. In other words, like there's not certain piles of documents with a sign that say proprietary and then another pile that say not proprietary. We spent a lot of time on this in 2012 when this agreement was negotiated and drafted on this very issue. And the issue is that Management Co. competes in the marketplace with other entities that book non-football events, and that sharing that information could be deemed to be put us at a competitive advantage. I mean, that's the issue. I'm not referring to any specific information per se. And so that's why there is a provision in the agreement that states that the stadium authority will agree to certain treatment of that information. But again, I want to emphasize that we haven't agreed to any specific information. The parties have not had that sit-down discussion.
And I'm going to ask as the auditor, my last question as of right now, Madam Mayor, is in your opinion, you mentioned that this was brought in closed session in 2012. I was not on the council then. But can you clarify again a little more of the parameters of what was discussed in 2012 that created 1512 and I want to support my colleagues in trying to reconcile what was discussed in 2012 by some members on this council there and the concerns that I want to support my colleagues with now.
Well, I think generally, those were closed session discussions, and I can't disclose that specifically, but certainly the notion that we were bringing in a 49er-related entity to manage the stadium was of some concern to the council, and not being in the stadium management business, we had to discuss, how we were going to contract with the company that was going to manage the entity, and bringing in private events, much like any other venue that may or may not be publicly owned. So certainly, that was the genesis of that section in the agreement. An acknowledgement that certain information is proprietary. That certainly doesn't mean that any specific information is, or all of it is. But again, the Stadium Authority acknowledged that some of it would be treated as proprietary.
Thank you.
Councilmember Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. My concern is, with the importance of having the documents, is that, especially on site, to be able to have a record here on site, in City Hall of, what we're entitled to know, what according to the management agreement. But the important thing is just to be able to preserve the record, to make sure that it's not altered. I think more than anything else, because 5 years from now, we may or may not be here. So we need to make sure that the record is protected. And here we are in Silicon Valley. I mean, there's a lot of IT, technology out there that you can preserve records and save them in such a way so that they will not be accessed. And I understand the concern about proprietary information. I think we discussed it a lot last week, and I thought we made that statement clear. But at the same time, we need to have a record, going forward to make sure that things stay, nothing is altered. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good point. I know that, the beauty of this is sending this 30-day notice of potential breach of contract. It gives the 49er management company 30 days to produce all these documents and deliver them to the Stadium Authority. So it's at the end of that, if they certainly are not delivered, then we're talking about a breach of contract. But until then, there's an opportunity to cure and deliver those documents. I don't think, looking at this agreement, that there isn't anything in agreement that would prohibits the Stadium Authority Board, the elected officials, from viewing these documents and have them be the property of the Stadium Authority. That makes absolutely no sense. So could I have the auditor, Dan Gocher, come forward, please? Did I say your last name right?
It's Goncher.
Goncher, thank you. Sorry about that, Dan.
No worries.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I have a couple of questions for you, and then I know that maybe members of the Stadium Authority Board, what's that? He will, yeah. So I know you're going to give us a short report about what happened at the audit committee meeting yesterday, but there's a couple of things I want to get out front because there was a lot of discussion about your firm last week. And the 49ers raised questions about your firm's credentials last week. So could you just start by briefly explaining Harvey Rose Company and the type of work that you do?
Sure. So we are a public sector management consulting firm. We've been in business since 1978. We provide our services exclusively for public sector agencies. These are cities, counties, mostly on the local level, occasionally for state governments. We've conducted hundreds of performance audits using the government auditing standards promulgated by the Government Accountability Office. Since 1978, we have been under contract with the San Francisco Board of Supervisors since 1979 to provide budget and legislative analysis services, which includes performance audits. And we have a similar arrangement with the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, where we serve as their management audit division, and we provide management and performance audits for the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, thank you. And also, last week, there was a lot of issues raised for Manco about your firm's lack of responsiveness to their invitations to view documents and to meet with them. Could you please outline the history of the communications you had with the 49ers Management Company?
Sure. We had gotten in touch with the Management Co. folks. At the end of September, we sent them an email requesting a meeting. A few days later, on October 3rd, we sent an email requesting certain documents. Honestly, we did not see an acknowledgement of that document request. There was a meeting that was to be set up about a week after that, and it unfortunately had to be canceled. It was rescheduled for October 21st. We reiterated between October 3rd and October 21st that there are some documents that we would like to review. When can they be made available? There was no acknowledgement of that. We did discuss that at our October 21st meeting, which included kind of a discussion of the scope of the audit and our audit processes. And we discussed the requested documents. We received 2 of the requested documents a few weeks after that. I think it was either last week or the week before, we received a couple of documents. And then today, we were able to review the remainder of the requested documents that are available on site at the stadium.
Okay. After your report, I'm going to put those documents up and go over, and you can tell us exactly what you received and what you haven't received.
Okay.
But for the sake of the full council and the public, can you briefly restate the report that you gave the audit committee yesterday and include, you just included the updates for your meeting today, but if you can briefly state the report.
Sure. So last night, we presented a status update, which we provide on every other week to the ad hoc committee. And the first piece of this is we summarize the activities and accomplishments that happened during the reporting periods, which was the last 2 weeks ending yesterday. So the first thing is that we reviewed some final changes to a city management directive that is put out by the city manager, which covered stadium and special event time reporting and reimbursement for city services. And this was originally issued on August 5th. There was, I guess, some concerns about making some revisions to that. There has been some back and forth between our firm and the city manager, and we did give some final recommendations on that. And as we discussed last night, the city manager stated that that was sent out to staff, I think, last week. The second item, we continued our review of records that are held by the city, Stadium Authority, and the 49ers Management Company for comparison with corresponding payroll records to determine if all staff time spent on stadium-related activities have been recorded and reimbursed by either the 49ers entities or the Stadium Authority as appropriate. We also continued our analysis of detailed stadium revenue and cost information provided by the Stadium Authority / the city finance and accounting staff. So we've been reconciling that information with revenues and expenses as presented in the Stadium Authority's annual budget and quarterly financial reports. We've also requested and obtained detailed off-site parking fee revenue information for each stadium event and parking facility from the finance department. And we'll be working with Manco and city staff to review and analyze that information. We requested the draft and final NFL parking plans from city staff and received the final plan from Manco. So that's kind of a high-level summary of what we accomplished in the last 2 weeks. And then the second aspect of the status update is to kind of go over potential audit issues that we've identified. And I just want to stress that these are really preliminary in nature, and they are still subject to further review and analysis. But this is sort of what we've come up against so far. And there's two issues. The first is direction to city employees. And basically, as the stadium was constructed and began operations, the finance department created time codes and worked with individual city employees to assist them in tracking and recording their time. But the city did not provide any centralized citywide direction to all employees, clarifying what work activities are attributable to the stadium and subject to reimbursement until August of this year. So as a result, we think that some staff time for relevant activities might not have been billed and reimbursed, or some staff time may have been incorrectly billed due to the lack of citywide direction. As I had mentioned, there was a revised directive that was sent out by the city manager last week. The second issue that we raised last night was the absence of key plans and budget documents. So that there's a number of stadium-related plan and budget documents required to be prepared by Manco in various stadium authority agreements that have not been individually presented to the Stadium Authority Board or provided in the required level of detail in the Stadium Authority budget and financial status reports. And there's three, and I'll just briefly go over these three. The first is the Stadium Operation and Maintenance Plan. And the lease agreement requires that this plan be prepared by Manco to establish the required condition for the stadium, and as well as include policies and procedures for operating and maintaining the stadium complex in accordance with good, sound, and prudent engineering practices. And that's Article 7.1.1 of the lease. In spite of the importance of all parties agreeing to the required condition for the Stadium Authority Board and current staff do not have a copy of this document, as I think you had been discussing a few minutes ago. I think the key takeaway for us here, at least at this point, is that according to Stadium Lease Agreement Section 7.2, the plan is supposed to be presented to the Stadium Authority and Stadium tenant for review and approval. It is to serve as the basis for how the stadium is maintained and should inform the operating and maintenance costs included in the budget. For the Stadium Authority Executive Director and board members not to have a copy of the document, and for the budget document not to explicitly incorporate the standards in the document, leaves the Stadium Authority at a disadvantage in assessing the appropriateness of stadium operation and maintenance costs. So that's the Stadium Operating and Maintenance Plan. The second is the capital expenditure plan and budget. The stadium lease agreement calls for preparation of a draft capital expenditure plan for mutual approval by the Stadium Authority and the 49ers entities, and is to be adopted annually as part of the stadium operations and maintenance plan, and is to include both a budget year and a 5-year budget plan. The annual Stadium Authority budgets presented to the Stadium Authority for fiscal years 15 and 16 did include a 1-year capital budget, but not a 5-year plan as required. As required in the agreements. However, for the current fiscal year, they did start providing the 5-year capital plan. Manco representative has stated to us that a 5-year capital plan was not presented in the first 2 years, as a cost allocation plan had not been finalized until November of 2015. And the current 5-year plan, which is included in the current year budget, incorporated the asset allocation plan as detailed on the cost allocation plan. There was also some discussion of the stadium, because it was the first 2 years, it was difficult for them to budget out those 5 years of capital And we'll let them speak to that, but that was another reason that was given. And the third plan or budget was the annual shared stadium expenses budget. And the lease agreement requires that an annual shared expense budget detail costs to be shared by the Stadium Authority and the 49ers entities. These are the costs incurred for both NFL and non-NFL events, including things like landscaping services, stadium insurance. Non-shared expenses are allocated between parties depending on whether they're NFL events or non-NFL events. So the lease agreement calls for shared expense information to be detailed in a particularly described in the stadium operations and maintenance plan, a draft of the final annual shared expense budget, and the public safety plan. It is also to include a 5-year projection of shared expenses. We understand that a separate annual shared expense budget for board review is not produced, but such information is reportedly incorporated in the draft and final annual Stadium Authority budget. However, as it's currently prepared, the Stadium Authority budget document does not provide 5-year projections of shared expenses, details on which costs are being shared, amounts for individual expenses, or total amounts being shared. So that's kind of a high-level summary of our status update. And then I think the last piece was just talking about what we're going to accomplish in the next 2-week period, which started today. And I'd just say the highlight was that we were scheduled to go on site to review documents that we had requested, as I previously discussed, starting on October 3rd. And we did go on site today, and we were on site all day reviewing that documentation. So if there's any questions about the status update,
I think I have some questions, but I'm also going to ask staff if you could put up the document that's prepared, the agreement checklist, because I want to check with the auditor to see, so that we can use this as the basis for our letter. Yes, we'll go one by one, but let's go ahead and, Councilmember Davis, you had your light on first while we're getting the list of documents up for the next page.
Okay, so one of my questions to you was, you brought up the city manager's directive, and you said there were revisions. Could you elaborate on those revisions?
Sure. So in our status updates, we had included as an attachment our revisions, and I'm not sure if I have a copy with that with me right now, but one of the things that we had suggested was including specific examples of what type of activities would be considered stadium-related events. Some of those were related to the public safety activities. Another thing that we recommended was attaching a list of time codes to that. I think we had recommended annual training. We had recommended that specific managers or specific individuals that work for the city be tasked with specific responsibilities under the CMD for either for training or for reporting time or reviewing time that's provided by employees.
So I guess one of my questions would be, so if there's an arrest made at the stadium and that takes into consideration public safety time, and for our officers that have to go and investigate this and do their due diligence, I know a lot of that takes some time. Was that one thing that you were talking about? Because we did have an incident at the stadium where someone was beat in a bathroom, and I know that took substantial time for our police department to investigate that. So would that be considered stadium authority, or is that under the 49er contract? Do they pay for that?
So we recommended that be included in the CMD as a stadium-related activity. You might get a different answer from different folks, but the way that we interpreted it is because if it was originating from an incident that happened at the stadium, at a stadium event, that those were costs that were being borne by the city because of the stadium event. And so that would be stadium-related.
And then we would, as a stadium authority, charge that to the state Manco for our time for public safety, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and we also discussed creating some parameters around trying to have a common understanding of what would be stadium-related events and what would not. But I don't know if the specifics of that were included.
Okay. And the other thing that you brought up was the off-site parking from Manco. So recently, they canceled using the golf course, and that was a cost to the city of about $500,000. And then all of a sudden, we have all these Uber impacts. So was this in your conversation as to where this parking was going to go? Is that what you were researching out as part of your audit?
So we are looking into the parking. We haven't gotten down to that level of detail yet,
Okay.
but we have reviewed the NFL parking plan that was provided by Manco. That consists of the parking operating permits that are provided to the city. And we were able to review some parking agreements on site today at Manco, as well as some revenue and I think just revenue information from the parking, the offsite parking.
Okay, because that was one of the things that we did ask for. We get these lump sums, and we've asked for line by line so that we understand that when we go forward with the budget, and as you clearly stated, we have not seen this 5-year projection, and that puts us at a really bad position when we're trying to do our jobs and know what we need to do for this management of the stadium. The other concern of mine was the marketing plan, which is clearly stated here for non-NFL events, but to be shared with us. We've had no conversation about that whatsoever. And going into 2017, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of things in the queue, but that also leads to, that's our money for the city. So I have big concerns on that one myself. But I really wanted to go through this one by one to make sure that you are getting the documentation that you need to do a very specific audit so that we can get this moving forward. Because to me, I don't understand the pushback because it's an audit. And you would think that you would want to get this done so that we can move forward and be all happy again, but for some reason, we have these circuses going on. And I just want you to do your job, and I want you to get the availability. So can you please tell me how many hours you spent today there?
We arrived at 10 and left at 5:30, and we were there the whole
Good.
time. Yeah.
And when are you scheduled to go back again?
We are scheduled to go back on December 1st, which I believe is next Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to say for the public, and I'll go to Councilmember Caserta. You have some questions. I just want to say for the public, we're talking about probably two things here as well. Councilmember Davis brought up the fact that we are just starting an audit that was recommended by the grand jury, and it's a compliance audit for Measure J. No other auditor, they'll say, we've had audits on the stadium. We've never had an audit that looks at compliance with Measure J, which was the voter initiative and the taxpayer protection ordinance for the stadium, stating that no general fund monies were to be used at the stadium. And it clearly outlines what all the rules and regulations are for the stadium authority and how we are to operate. So this audit, and the reason we started the audit was, again, the grand jury recommended it. We hired Harvey Rose and Associates to get this done. In the course of their audit, one of the items that they looked at was our agreements and our management agreements. So all of these issues have come to light in the course of the Measure J compliance audit. So on our agenda tonight is about the management agreement, specifically what has required under the management agreement, what documents we've received from the Stadium Authority under the management agreement, and where we go from here. So I just wanted to clarify, it's the audit that caused all this information to come forward to the Stadium Authority Board. Councilmember Caserta?
Have all the documents that you've been requested been provided for you?
Can we go over them one by one? I have them listed up here.
Can you answer that question, please?
Sure. So some of the documents, I think we were told either don't exist or they're embedded in some other document. So we went through
Were you able to confirm that or not?
We've been able to go through and confirm that. And today we were able to review on site the remaining requests that were outstanding.
So the answer is yes.
Can we please go over it one
Madam
by
Mayor,
one?
Madam Mayor, I'm elected like you are.
Okay.
I'm very proud of our teamwork, and I have some questions.
No, that's fine. I just thought it would be easier if we go through one by one
That's
as to
fine.
what has been received and what hasn't been received.
And then my next question is, I voted to also approve you to do this audit. I know your company interacts with the audit committee. Is that on a weekly basis?
It's a biweekly basis, every other week.
And then my question is, separate of that, do you receive phone calls or emails from staff? How does that interaction work? And separate of the audit meetings biweekly, do you have council members, et cetera, that contact you? Because I never have.
So we work with, we speak with representatives from city employees.
Okay.
From the city employees that we have questions of, that we want to interview, that we follow up with. We also have had several city staff contact us anonymously, as has been set up, I think, by the city manager. Sent out a directive.
Whistleblowing, yeah.
Exactly.
Great, yeah. And what about interaction with us on the dais here?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
All right, if we could take this agreement checklist, because I'd like to know from our auditor, which of these documents have been turned over to you or the Stadium Authority, because we're going to use this as the basis for our letter. First, we have, and again, you'll notice here, this is based on a report that was prepared by our staff last week. It talks about the required documents that the stadium manager shall provide to the Stadium Authority, and the section of the management agreement that references that document. So first, we have the Statement of Stadium Operations 4.2. Do you have that? Has that been turned over to you or the Stadium Authority?
So I'm not 100% sure what that was referring to. Is this something that was supposed to be prepared as part of the pre-operation phase of the stadium?
No.
Okay.
I have those are after.
If
Oh,
that's
it's 4.2.
4.2.
What is it?
Consultation with Stadium Authority, second.
No.
At least 6 months prior.
Deb.
Dan, that could be the KPMG audit. That could be contained
Oh.
in that.
Within 90 days following each fiscal year, the stadium manager shall furnish to the Stadium Authority and Stadco a statement prepared by a third-party CPA, blah, 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 annual statement of stadium operations.
I cannot say for sure whether we've seen that or not. I'm sorry.
Okay. Stadium operations and maintenance plan, including annual shared stadium expense budget, annual public safety budget, and annual capital expenditure plan.
Okay, so we were able to review the operation and maintenance plan on site. We were not permitted to take a copy with us. That is has been produced on an annual basis since 2014.
But no copies are
Correct.
are
And-
available. Okay.
Correct.
Operating budget and Stadco, I guess that might be under the same.
So the operating budget, what we've seen is just the quarterly reports that are provided to the Stadium Authority Board.
But not a separate,
Correct.
okay. Shared stadium expenses budget, including 5-year projection. And when I talk, I'm talking for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the finance director emailed us yesterday morning what he thought was the shared stadium expense budget that was prepared, I think, in 2014. But it might have been a draft expense budget, and I don't believe that it was presented to the Stadium Authority Board, and we do not have copies of any other shared stadium expense budget.
Okay. Capital expenditure plan.
So we've been told that that's embedded in the annual budget. So we don't have a separate capital expenditure plan.
Marketing plan for non-NFL events?
We do not have a copy of that. In full disclosure, I don't believe we've requested that specific plan yet.
Well, it's in the,
Okay.
these are things that are in the agreement.
Okay,
You just haven't seen it.
correct.
Okay. And then there's all the pre-opening obligations.
We have not seen, I don't believe we've seen any of that because the scope of our audit was to begin, I think, April 1st, 2014. Yeah.
The grand jury recommended after this is finished that we then go back to the beginning, 2010. So that's going to be phase 2 of the audit. Okay, and so the last is, so we'll skip those there, but the stadium management agreement checklist, within 45 days of each non-NFL event, with attendance projected to exceed 25,000, there's supposed to be written reports and that. Have you seen any of those?
I don't know.
We haven't, so just curious, okay. And then the other is the meetings. I think we can ask our staff about that. So are there any questions? Thank you. Are there any other questions for the auditor from the council or the board? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Next, I assume, Mr. O'Brien, who is representing Manco? If you'd like to come forward, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. My name, again, is Harry O'Brien. If you could put that same list up again, we would very much appreciate that. There was a statement made early on that no documents have been provided over the last 2.5 years, which is simply not the case. And as we went through this list, there were a number that were acknowledged had been prepared. There are a number of those that have not just been prepared, but have been presented to this board. There are others that the auditor has recommended to you now that they should be regularly presented to the board. There's nothing in the agreement that required them to be, and they weren't. That doesn't mean they don't exist. And so when you're talking about the documents that haven't been provided, I think I agree with Madam Mayor that we should be going through this list very carefully and identifying what documents you're concerned about. There's nothing on here that we don't believe that has not been provided, that it's not available. There's nothing, for the most part, on this list that we think is proprietary or shouldn't be provided. So I think there's some confusion that's been created, and I'm hoping we can sort that out together here. So a statement of stadium operations presented every single year in accordance with the agreement, certified, audited and certified by KPMG, presented to this board annually, done and done. Okay? Stadium maintenance and operations plan, as was just described, it does exist. It was made available to Harvey M. Rose today. It has been reviewed with staff in the past. I understand that staff doesn't have it. We have reviewed it with the staff in the past. We're happy to review it again. For the most part, it's pretty dry stuff and not particularly sensitive. There are aspects of it relating to the security system that are extremely sensitive that I think for all of our sakes, we'd want to make sure there is special care taken to make sure that that information is not available to people who would want to misuse it. That said, the document exists. Your auditors reviewed it today. You're welcome to come over and review it. We're welcome to make available copies of the appropriate elements of that you are particularly interested in. You're welcome to come over and view any parts of it that you like at any time. The operating budget is presented annually. It's approved by this board annually. In March of this year, it was approved for the current year, along with including provision for the Measure J audit that this board requested, and that's exactly where we provided for that. So that document exists. It's been presented to this board. The shared stadium expense budget is an element of that
document. There's the shared stadium expenses are allocated and included in the annual budget and presented to this board. In addition, projections have been made, as we discussed, we touched on last week. Projections have been made not just for 5 years, but as we've been going through the rent adjustment process, they've been projected out for 40 years and shared with your staff, shared with Kaiser Marston, reviewed in detail, 40-year projections of the shared stadium expenses as well as every other expense. The information is not only exists, it's been shared with your staff, it's been shared with your consultants, it's been shared with you. So the CapEx plan is the next one. It was presented this year. I think it was the gentleman from Harvey M. Rose described, there was some delay in the first couple of years around completing the allocation between Stadco and the Stadium Authority of the capital improvements. And furthermore, as we're working through the punch list, as we described, we identified things that needed work to be done. We included them in the original project budget rather than in the capital expenditures for that year. The capital expenditure plan for the current year was presented to and approved by this board. The marketing plan for non-NFL events exists. Information has been developed. There's been a lot of conversation with your staff and more regular reporting to you about the kinds of events that are being sought. The stadium manager has done an exceptional job in booking events. That's why you're ahead of budget on non-NFL event revenue for every year the stadium has been in effect. So to have that list up there and to say that none of these documents have been provided for 2.5 years is just wrong. It's misleading, it's inaccurate, it's not fair, and it's not right. It's simply not the truth. All of this information has been provided. Much of it has been provided and approved by this board. And we're happy to work with you more. If you'd like it in a different format, if you'd like more reporting to this board, we're happy to do it. Pick up the phone and give us a call. Don't need a notice of default. We can have a conversation about it. The information has been presented in accordance with it. I'm not quite sure what you think this notice of default is going to say in light of what we've just reviewed in terms of the information that has in fact been provided. So, with that, Scott Sabatino, who's the Chief Financial Officer, is here with me. If you have any specific questions about any of this information that has been provided and is available to you at any time, we're happy to talk to you about it. And, just let us know what you need to see. If you think you need information in a different format in order to exercise your responsibilities to manage this stadium, that's our job, to work with you to do that. We can't anticipate that. We've been working with your staff for years. We think we have a good relationship with them and have provided the information that they've asked us to provide. If you want information in a different format, please give your staff direction or call us up directly. We're here to help, but we can't. We've been working towards the requirements of the agreement. We think we've fulfilled the requirements of the agreement, and that's why we're here tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Caserta and then Watanabe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what I'm trying to find a consensus is from what I heard you say, and please tell me if I'm saying this wrong, that you are completely comfortable in giving us many of these documents as a board that is open for public consumption. If that's correct, can you clarify some of these items that my colleagues and I would like to have for public consumption? And then 1512 talks about the proprietor issues. Can you carve out for us some things that you feel are consistent with the contract that you do not want for public consumption? And talk about, you mentioned the safety issue. Clarify why you think it's in the public's best interest to not give us that.
Sure, I'm happy to do it. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. If I want to answer your question, Councilman Caserta, I would just like to add that the reason Dan was unable to acknowledge that he had seen many of the pre-opening and other documents on the list is because that was never on a list that he requested documents from us. I think that was what the staff looked at last Friday in our office, and it was 100% available and in existence and complete. So things like the policies and procedures and other documents in that pre-opening list, Dan sort of stood here, and I've no knock on Dan, but a little bit like in the headlights, because he didn't even know what they were because he never asked us for them. Had he asked us for them, he would have already seen them. He would have seen them today or prior to today. I just wanted to clarify that. In terms of the sensitive information, I think Jim Mercurio, our stadium manager, did a great job covering that last week. There are certain systems in that plan in detail that if those plans became available, would be a major security risk to 70,000 people. And that's, at a high level, in a nutshell, that's the truth. We went through due diligence for Super Bowl 50 for about a year, both from a cyber standpoint to every system in the building. Fortunately, we passed with flying colors. There were no incidents at the Super Bowl. Our systems were not just solid, but regarded as first class, top notch. So this isn't just, this is maintaining a world-class facility for you and the citizens of Santa Clara. Does that answer your question?
So the things that you would like this board to be able to see anytime, but not necessarily for public consumption, would be safety issue things, for example. But can you answer the other part of the question? Are there some documents that we do not have here at City Hall now that you'd be willing to give to us for public consumption?
I can't think of one document on that list that we haven't provided, other than the stadium operations and maintenance plan, the non-NFL event data. And Harry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those are primarily the sensitive documents that we've explained time and time again as to why, if we make it a public document, we want everyone to see it. We've invited everyone here to see it at our facility or even here. If it becomes a public document, it hurts everybody.
So, and then my last question, Madam Mayor, and I would love your comments on too, Madam Mayor. Your position is the lion's share of what's up here we've either approved, which has been available for public consumption, and the few things that are not, you've already stated in regards to why you don't want to. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. It seems to me that there's a communication breakdown. We're just asking for documents that will help us establish whether or not, the stadium authority has the funds available, to pay the bills, basically. And we're not looking for, security, we're not looking for you to breach security or anything like that, totally understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're talking about cost allocations, okay? I understand, very important. We need to know what our cost allocation is so that we know that we have the funding available to pay the bills, to do what the stadium authority is delegated to do. But more so, the audit, okay? This is all about the audit, okay? And the audit, the auditor that we've hired, he's been asking for information. They've provided 6 reports now. They're meeting on a biweekly basis. That's 12 weeks. That's 3 months. 3 months we're waiting now for information to be able to answer the questions, to be able to move forward, to finish an audit that we were expecting to do at the end of December that's now being delayed as a result of this. He's asking for information that you say is available. Well, if it's available, why is he still asking for it?
So we received our first request for documents in a meeting in late September, early October. We immediately responded and said, here are some dates. We'd like to meet with you at our office and discuss this. We've never met these people. We really didn't know what the scope of their work was. You engaged them, we did not. So we wanted to have our first face-to-face scope meeting. I've been an auditor. It's been a long time, but that is very standard for any audit engagement, is you have an initial meeting and discuss the scope of the audit. Secondly, the documents they were looking for primarily are your documents, so they're public documents. So we were a bit confused why they were asking us for your annual budget when it was approved by this very board in March of 2016, 15, and 14. We had that meeting. We had a great discussion. It was very collaborative. We understood the scope of their work. We asked them questions. They asked us questions. I think they walked away a lot more educated, as did we. And then we started to provide those documents. We did explain from day one, which we've explained to this board over the last several years, that the non-NFL event detail, which I explained last week, is very sensitive and confidential, because that does contribute $2.5 million to the general fund, $5.5 million to the general fund since the stadium opened, which is well ahead of budget, which is great for everybody. That will go away because if that information becomes public, every promoter out there will know exactly what your profit margins are, and they'll negotiate to take it away from you. And our president would like to speak to that point specifically a little later. So we've provided, including today, everything on their list that they've requested. They've dug down into general ledgers today. They looked at all the non-NFL events they asked for. There were dozens of lines of revenue and expense detail. They asked several questions. They thanked us. They said, "This is great. This is exactly what we've been waiting to look for. We appreciate it. We'll probably need a little more time to review it." We said, "Before you leave today, let's agree you saw everything you came to see today, if not more. And secondly, let's get another date on the calendar." We even invited them to stay all night. We said, "We'll stay with you all night if you can do it." They had to leave at 5:30. So they're coming next Thursday, and they're going to be there all day. And if that's not enough, they can come on Friday, and they can come on Saturday, and they can just keep coming till they're satisfied that they've seen everything. The issue is making those documents public. I don't think we can say that enough times.
So I have a question for you. Do you agree that all the documents must be in the possession of the Stadium Authority per the agreement?
What are you referring to when you say per the agreement?
Per the management agreement?
Is there a
That
specific-
shall provide to the Stadium Authority? So I know you're saying you provided them at your location to be viewed by the auditor, but the report, the management agreement clearly states they need to be in the possession of the Stadium Authority. Are you saying they should be in the possession, or you're saying that, because you're saying you provided all these documents, and I'm not here to argue, we're going to just finish this and go to the public, but all the documents must be in the possession of the city. Do you disagree with that? That we cannot have them in our possession? Because all those documents that you've said you've provided over all these years, we have not seen. So,
Madam Mayor, we just went over a list
I
of
know.
things that you've approved. You haven't just
Okay.
seen them, you've approved them.
all right, I'm really not here to argue with the council for Manco. But
With all due respect, Madam Mayor, anything that says it's required to be provided, we have provided.
where have you provided them?
In the list we just went over, Madam
Where
Mayor, we've-
physically are they
the budget
provided?
documents and the capital expenditure plan exist in the city's offices. They have been approved by this body. They have
Have they
appeared
been
on this
turned over
screen.
to the Stadium Authority?
Absolutely.
They've been, so city staff, have they turned over the documents to the Stadium Authority so that we would be able to view these documents?
When you say the documents, let's be clear about the documents. The documents that the management plan requires to be provided have been provided. You've been provided a capital expenditure plan. You've been provided an operating budget. You've been provided a statement of operations.
Okay, so, all right, we're just beating a dead horse here. Thank you very much. We have a difference of opinion. I believe that we are going to have to settle this some other way, and it's not going to be here at the dais with Manco's council. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple comments. Some of these documents did come forward, and I think if people recall, we need to look back. There were times when documents were brought and members of the council, perhaps in a minority at that time, raised a lot of questions. And we were told, well, either, or these have already been passed on, or you have to, at the very last minute, they were presented, and if you don't vote to approve these right now, we could be in, in a default issue on our loans. Because you have to show that you have these reports and these budgets and everything. And so time and again, we were getting those reports either when it was past the deadline or the deadline's tomorrow. And I think some of you may recall that a couple of us held up like a piece of paper with a budget that was like a half a page. So I agree that some of these things have been provided, but some of us have been asking questions about, I can't tell anything from that budget. I mean, the numbers were so rolled up, and some of the council members laughed because I kept talking about that magic $5 million number that kept popping up. So, in terms of my responsibility as a fiduciary on behalf of the people who elected me and honored me just recently to reelect me, I need to look at more data than that. I mean, so and there were little things that were embedded, but in terms of being able, particularly what's even perhaps more worrisome to me, is knowing some of the strategy and the marketing plan, because I've tried to be very polite and not say some of these things, particularly last week when the employees were all here, but it's a little disconcerting for me as someone who has an oversight at the stadium when, the performance of the team, that's the football team's issue, but it does impact us in terms of our revenue, but also very disconcerting to read all, mini surveys and online commentary and things like that talk about that the experience at Levi Stadium is not in the top echelon of venues. And particularly for I don't know, so part of what I want to know, I want to have this conversation, I want to look at the strategy for the stadium. Is that true for the concerts, or is that just what people are experiencing when they go to a football game? And where are we going to go? Because those are the things that impact us long term. And so that's what my role is, not really to know, like I said before, how many bottles of Perrier water in Beyonce's dressing room. But I do need to know where those events are going, and also to be having the ongoing conversation of how can we make sure that the experience that fans have when they are our guests in Santa Clara at Levi Stadium is a premier experience. And if we're not providing that, what can we do about that? Because we have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars invested in this venue. And so that's why I'm hanging in here on asking these questions. And the level of detail, and I like I said, we've said from the beginning that we're not after the team's NFL game day information, because a lot of those rights were negotiated away in terms of the concessions and all that. But the information that is going to help us make sure that we are all successful. And I think we all of us, both the Stadium Authority, Manco, and all, we all need all the help we can get right now to be successful. And so that's what we're talking about. And I, like I said, I will acknowledge that some of that information came. Was it in a format that I requested? I a couple years ago sat up here with a budget with a lot of big circles drawn in it and said, I believe that these are Stadium Authority items, and they should be listed on the Stadium Authority budget, not listed in the general fund, where then you have to bill back. To me, that's not being transparent in how you're doing, and just being able to know. I was told by staff that was being worked on, that those changes, okay, yeah, maybe that's the way we should be doing it. So there has been some dialogue, and where the dialogue has broken down, I'm not quite sure. But for me, the issue is the adequacy of data in order to be able to manage a $1 billion facility where all of our financial futures are tied into the success of that. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm not trying to be unreasonable. I will acknowledge that some information has been provided, but I think we're still getting to, I think there also has to be some level of trust and cooperation on the part of the management company. I mean, we did hire you. We didn't turn over ownership of the stadium, and and has been mentioned. I had that conversation with Dr. York close to 10 years ago in a living room of a home here in Santa Clara, just as I know others of you did too, about why should the city of Santa Clara own a stadium? Why should the 49ers own the stadium? If you want to operate totally as a closed proprietary company, we might entertain an offer if you wanted to buy the stadium. That would be appropriate then. But, and yes, even though the contract makes clear that Stadco and Manco are not public entities by the fact that they entered into this agreement, you are hired by a public entity. And so that does put upon you a certain level of obligation. As I said, if you wanted to act and conduct your business totally as a private entity, you had the option to ask the city if you could lease the land and build and own the stadium yourself. But that was, I remember being told by Dr. York that was not the business that his family was in. So we do have to find a way to work together on this, and because our fates are tied, whether we like it, for quite a while here. But I don't, maybe we are having a communication problem here, but I think that there has to be an acknowledgement that the city has a huge interest in this. The people of this community have a huge interest, and we need to work together to make sure that this is going to be successful. So, Madam Mayor, if you're ready to
Thank
go
you,
forward.
Vice Mayor O'Neill. And I think what's extra important is that all we're trying to do is follow the management agreement. And the management agreement clearly states, deliverables to the Stadium Authority. And those deliverables are important. Especially troubling now that I hear this evening and last week that they do not want to deliver the information on the non-NFL events. And frankly, those are the events we are most interested in, because those are the events, the non-NFL events, where the city's general fund actually may generate income from the non-NFL events. You just cannot withhold information from us. All we're doing is protecting ourselves and following the law, following the contracts. So, much of this information, excuse me, sir.
Go ahead.
Some of this information, like the cost allocation study, we have been looking for that for close to a year now. The cost allocation study, where the heck is that? We've never seen it. Staff doesn't have it. Auditors don't have it. Manco has not provided it to the Stadium Authority. I mean, it's just, we're derelict in our positions here if we cannot get the information. The expenses, the shared expenses for the non-NFL events. We have found out that they are replacing the turf on the stadium and charging the non-NFL discretionary fund. That's our fund and that's our thing on our side. Why are they doing that? Well, supply us the shared expense information. What else are you expensing on the non-NFL side? You're telling us you're not going to provide that information to us, so we'll never know. Should we be making I'm talking to you personally, should we be making $2.5 million a year, or should we be making $25 million a year into our general fund? Who the heck knows? We don't know, because they're not turning over the information. Take the management agreement, go line by line of what's required, follow the law. That's all we're asking. Don't make it personal. It's not here. It's nothing of that nature. It's business. You're our tenant. We're your landlord. Our public owns this stadium. The 49ers do not. You had huge tax breaks by partnering with the city of Santa Clara for that huge debt on the stadium. So there's a benefit for partnering with the public agency for the 49er organization. We acknowledge that. But again, as Vice Mayor O'Neill said, when you partner with the public agency, there are responsibilities to the public. We want you just to stand by your signed contracts, and we are enforcing our contracts here with you, and we'd like you to live up to your responsibilities. And I believe once you do live up to your responsibilities, then and only then can we have a very close working relationship. But we have to set it straight. We have to set it right. And we have certain rights under this agreement, and we are going to enforce it. So go ahead.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, Mayor Gilmore. I don't want to talk for Harry or Scott or the auditors. I mean, I think it's clear that we have provided these documents or we reviewed them at our offices. What you stated is that you don't have the non-NFL event information or financials. That's not true. We met with city staff, we've met with Gary Ammon, we've shared these event financials. Mayor Gilmore, you and I met 3 different times after you were appointed mayor to talk about public safety costs, the rent adjustment, and non-NFL events. So the sheer fact of the matter that those meetings didn't happen, I guess I would ask you for the same transparency you're asking us around your calendar and whether or not those meetings existed at Levi Stadium at your offices.
Yes, they're on my calendar in case anyone would like to know. To go over when you were asking for the rent reset for Measure J, and the rent reset and Exhibit J from the original lease agreement, yes. I acknowledge they're on my calendar.
Thank you. Vice Mayor O'Neill, you have every right to understand the operations of Levi Stadium and how we do relative to non-NFL events. There's no question there. No one's denying that. What I would point to is a lot of the facts and figures that have come out, whether it was our staff last week or whether it's been shared with your auditors or your council on how many events have occurred there. And I can only speak for the promoters who consistently book events at Levi Stadium, your building. If we didn't do a good job managing these events, why would they come back? Why would we be able to book Super Bowl 50? Why would we be able to land the College Football National Championship in 2019? These are the biggest players in the market of sports. If we weren't doing a good job on your behalf booking this building, why would they come? And not only that, they return business. AEG, which is one of the world's largest concert promoters, and Live Nation have been back to this building multiple times. What I would tell you on the non-NFL specific information, and I do appreciate you giving me the time here because I did have public comments, so thank you very much for that. The reason why we're not going to provide that information, it is proprietary, it is confidential, it is in no one's best interest. It's not in the 49ers, it's not in the city of Santa Clara, it's not in the promoters who book the building, and it's not in the acts that come here. It's not in the best interest of that information to be made public. I will add, no facility in America releases this information. None, not one. And not any that actually even have taxpayer dollars funding their building. So it's been said before that our deal is different. Well, the city of Minnesota has a deal where $300 million of public money went into that building, and I can tell you they will not release this information. I've worked for 2 of the biggest entities in sports, the Dallas Cowboys and here with the San Francisco 49ers. I've never released this information. I've booked and or hosted over 100 major events. On top of that, all of the private events that occur inside your building, Levi's Stadium, those companies don't want that information released, no different than you don't want your personal information released. It's not as if we're not willing to share the revenues or how much money you make. We've done over $5.5 million to the city's general fund. This budget grows to an excess of $200 million. Scott mentioned last week that he's saving you from yourselves. Let me just take a different stance on that. And we have a fiduciary responsibility, not just to you, Mayor Gilmore, not to the council members, but to the citizens of Santa Clara who voted on this building. There was concerns around the debt that this city would take on. The SBL proceeds were over $536 million, $30 million over budget. There was questions and concerns around the general fund money and how non-NFL events would do. Those have been answered in your own budgets, what we've delivered to the stadium authority. So again, it's not as if we're trying to hide, we're meeting with all of these people. Again, Scott said you can come over to our office, we'll come here, you can call me. We've done these meetings in the past. I'm happy to walk you through the event line items. We will not share in public record what how the Beyonce concert looks for the Coldplay. Because Scott is right. If a promoter knows that, then your margins get squeezed. I will tell you, don't just look at Levi's. Call Larry Baer. Call Rick Welts. So Larry Baer, the president of CEO of the San Francisco Giants. Call Rick Welts, the president of the Golden State Warriors. Have John Turturro come down here from the San Jose Sharks and ask them whether or not they make any of this information public. The simple answer is no. And the simple answer is because we are doing the job on your behalf, and our job is to deliver event revenue profits to the general fund, and we've done that. So, again, I want to bring this back together, Mayor Gilmore. You and I both signed a document about our shared interest in the 2024 Olympics. I believe we can have these major events. I believe that we can work together as we once did. I want to do that. And I will continue to meet, and our staff will continue to meet with the auditors. We're going to meet next Thursday. As Scott mentioned, we're here to meet wherever. We met with city staff last Friday. I'd like to thank them for all their hard work on behalf of the authority. We're available anytime. We're here tonight. We were here last week. I'm happy to show up at any point to talk about this, Vice Mayor O'Neill, around our operations. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate what you said, Mr. Guido. There's just one major difference. You signed the contract, you signed a management agreement, and we just want to get the rights and law, legal responsibilities on your side and our side in the management agreement. So the difference between you telling us you don't want to turn over information because it's proprietary, it doesn't say it in the agreement that your organization signed. That's the difference. So we just want to follow the agreement, simple as that. But thank you very much for your testimony. I'm going to, Councilmember Watanabe, did you have a question for Mr. Guido?
Mr. Guido, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I just want to, I understand what you've just said, but also to go back to what Mayor Gilmore said, this audit has brought about the fact that, $200,000 has been spent, to replace the sod at the stadium, and that money came out of general fund money.
Say that again, one time.
The replacement, the cost to replace the sod at the stadium came out of stadium authority money as opposed to.
Discretionary fund money, which is a reserve.
Yes.
And that's money that, that could flow to the general fund.
Yes.
But it's used for extra public safety costs and some other expenses. But until we get the actual detail of the expenses, we can't tell.
Oh, but my point being is just that the fact that this is what this audit has brought about. It's brought about the fact that there is general fund money being used to pay for public safety costs. So obviously, it is, just those two things right there prove the reasons why we need to know what the costs are, so we can know that, that the stadium authority is paying for what it's supposed to be paying for, and the money is not coming from the general fund, because in the bottom line is that it's taxpayer money.
Okay.
Councilman, do you want, was it a question or?
I think it was that a question or a comment?
I just wanted to point that out to you, that this is why the importance of the audit.
Sure, and no one denies the importance of the audit, and as you can see, we were happy to work with your auditors, and Harry went through the list. I'm glad that Mayor Gilmore clarified the general fund. If, within these event P&Ls, if there is a sod replacement, we can discuss that at length, whenever it is you want. That comes out of the event P&L. It doesn't come out of the general fund. But again, happy to go over any of these with you or with city staff, as we've already said.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and start with the public comment. I know the public's really been wanting to speak on this. I'm going to start with Kurt Vartan, Dorothy Rosa, and then Bob O'Keefe. Do you have any other cards, City Clerk? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last week, I experienced a very full council chamber with hardworking and frustrated people. I heard them express their anger and frustration in a manner that, upon reflection, I have a general problem with. I watched people personally attack the mayor when speaking about their jobs and how they believed they were being treated. I saw a woman call our mayor a bully and that the mayor was an example of what was wrong in America. Tonight, I am here to make a very clear statement. The community supports you, Mayor Gilmore, and fellow council members. No one has the right to threaten or intimidate people or a city. And the people that live here, we're here to stand with you. You have called for an audit of the records of a $1.3 billion stadium. You should be able to review and confirm the data to make sure the city is getting compensated properly. And simply asking for information does not give any group the right to disrespect and personally attack you or the city, especially not a trusted partner like the 49er organization. The people here tonight are here because we want you to know you have a city that supports you. Another 2 to 4 years in front of us is in front of us now. Know that you have a city that supports the incredible task of helping lead the region in land use, transportation, placemaking, urbanization, and quality of life. You face other large, profit-focused organizations that will distract you from your primary goal, create incredible value for the citizens of Santa Clara, and create a great city. There is a lot of change happening, and many are concerned about the impacts. The incredible developments planned and envisioned are some of the largest in the country, and we need a council that can rise above the noise and help deliver on the vision for Santa Clara. Take your time, understand the data, review your options, and do the best you can. We know you will have Santa Clara's interests at heart. Thank you very much for your dedication to all of us.
Thank you. Dorothy Rosa, and then Bob O'Keefe after that. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. You know, I watched the City Council on TV last week, and I thought I had made a mistake on the dates. I thought I was watching the Donald Trump campaign. That's all I heard. I kept hearing nasty, liar, bully. You're taking fruit from my children. And then I realized I was watching the City Council. It was a group of nice young people that work for the 49ers. The thing is, they never talked about the agenda. You were taken in on buses, they were taken in on buses, and in case you didn't know, the agenda is the 49ers not doing what they promised. You were too busy insulting our mayor, who did not deserve any of this. She thanked every one of you after you spoke. Shame on you. What you should have called her is fair, kind, smart, respectful, and understanding. That's what our mayor is. No doubt about it. And I was so amazed at what I heard and saw, I just couldn't believe it. You know what? The 49ers are broken all around the place. They don't know how to run a football team. They don't know how to run anything. I thank you with all my heart for what you've done.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa. Bob O'Keefe and then Burt Field, please queue up. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Santa Clara City Code, Chapter 3.40, states that all businesses are required by law to have a valid business license issued from the City of Santa Clara in order to transact business within the city. Each business is responsible for renewing their business license before its expiration date. Expired business licenses are automatically canceled 90 days after the expiration date. I could not help but notice on the city's website that the business license for the 49er Management Company, LLC, or Manco, expired on August 14th, 2016, has not been renewed, and is after 90 days. This must now be considered canceled. It's the law. Since Manco does not have a valid business license, it cannot legally conduct business within the City of Santa Clara. If it cannot conduct business within the City of Santa Clara, how can it manage Levi Stadium? Everything from stadium operations to contractual booking of events. In fact, what is the legal status of all contracts signed by Manco after August 14, 2016? And what are all the possible liabilities this exposes to the Stadium Authority and to the city? There's been a lot of talk about the management agreement between the 49ers and the city. Section 2.11 of that contract clearly states the stadium manager, Manco, shall comply with all legal requirements, including any legal requirement to obtain licenses and permits and keep them in effect. Is Manco currently in breach of this contract? I hope that no one on either side takes this lightly. One must view the big picture. Manco and the 49ers have a boatload of lawyers, contract experts, top management, and business executives. But if their organization fails with such a basic business principle as maintaining a business license, how can we as a city entrust them to manage a billion-dollar-plus stadium, negotiate millions of dollars worth of entertainment contracts, and most of all, ensure that the city is receiving all reimbursements and revenues due? I wholeheartedly support the current audit as ordered by the City Council and look forward to having my concerns answered tonight.
Thank you for that interesting bit of information. We might add that to the letter. Bert Field and then Tim Thompson, if you'd like to line up, please. Welcome, Mr. Field.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. Once again, I stand here for a large group called Stand Up for Santa Clara, but I think at this point, I may represent a much larger group of people after the November 8th election. I think that was kind of a mandate that is telling the city of Santa Clara which way we want to go. And quite frankly, it was a bad day for the 49ers. Going forward, it might have been the best day for the 49ers because the next election, if they thought that last one was bad, just wait till the next election. Anyone right now sitting on the other side of supporting Santa Clara does not have a chance to win an election as far as going forward. The great thing about a 2-minute speech right now is I get 2 minutes to say what I have to say. However, in this room, there's many people who are also going to want to run for office in a couple of years. They're tired of 2 minutes. They want to have their say. So going forward, Measure J. There's two things that play here. One's the audit, and one, of course, is the lease agreement. We need to have those papers. We need to be able to make an educated guess for the next 40 years, or actually 38 years at this point. So I'm really hoping you guys take your time, do the very best you can, make the best decisions for Santa Clara, because right now Santa Clara is counting on you. And unfortunately, we had one person not win the election that I was hoping for, but I want to give Tino credit for pushing Measure R onto the ballot. And I have never seen 90% of people agree on anything. We had 90% of the residents of Santa Clara agree that the use of the open park and spaces will never be changed again by this dais or any dais in the future. It's going to be the city of Santa Clara residents. And I hope to God that people understand when Tino runs again in 2018, that he's the reason that got on the ballot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You still have time left, too. Anyways, Tim Thompson and then Ricky Harrow, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Congratulations on your election. Teresa, Madam Mayor, Debbie, Kathy.
I wasn't up for election,
Well-
but you would have never known that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for being on that side of the table for us. Back to Measure J, I was the one that had the sign stolen out of my yard. I put it up on my chimney to keep it there, and I still have it. It's not on the chimney, but so be it. I've been in construction, for commercial construction for 38 years, the last 18 years as a superintendent running some pretty high-end commercial work. And I'm at the beck and call of every identity that I work for, whether it's a school district, a county, or a law firm, or whatever. And if they ask me to turn over paperwork, I have to be honest about it. I can't cook the books and say, well, here's this report, here's that report. I'm not quite sure, I'll just doctor this one up. I have to turn over certified payroll at a moment's notice to school districts, to anybody that asks for it, because that's what they need for my boss to get paid for. I'm not against the Niners, but I'm not in favor of them. I already said I was against the stadium, but it's here now, so we have to deal with it. I think maybe the reason they're not turning over some of it is because maybe their employees will know how much they make and they might ask for more money. I know if my boss, I hope he makes a lot of money, but I hope he takes care of me. And I've never had to ask for a raise in 38 years. I've always been paid a good salary for what I do. But I think that might be part of why they don't want to turn it over, because their employees that were here last time insulting you guys, they'll ask for more money because they know they're getting it. So that's something to think about. I understand security. We don't need to know everything, the public, because sometimes we know too much, and then guess what? The bad guys know too much. So I get that. I get that wholeheartedly. So I'm not in bed with the 49ers. So I wish them well. They're millionaires. They can start paying for some of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ricky Harrow, then Richard Benito. Welcome, Mr. Harrow.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Ricky Harrow, 2426 Robinson Avenue, Santa Clara, lifetime Santa Clara resident, lifetime 49er fan. I'd like to say that I wore this shirt on purpose tonight. Yes on Jay. Because when the 49ers came to this city in '09, well, actually when I got involved in '09, and they asked me to advocate on their behalf for a stadium, an NFL stadium in my neighborhood, I was flattered and I was honored. So I went out and I campaigned in my neighborhood every weekend with my son that was 8 years old at the time. And we knocked on doors and we told our neighbors what a benefit this stadium was going to be to our city, how it was going to benefit our schools, it was going to strengthen our general fund, and it was going to put us on the map. And I believed it. I bought it. So much that when they asked me to be on their commercial for the Yes on J campaign, I said yes. And I distinctly remember one quote from that commercial, and that was, for the head of the Chamber of Commerce at that time, ironclad taxpayer protection is what he said. He told us ironclad taxpayer protection, and I bought that. And I preached it to my neighbors, and we passed Measure J, and we celebrated. And it wasn't long after that I regretted advocating for Measure J. I love the stadium in our city. I love having it there. I love the events. I love my team. But I do not like how the 49ers have treated our city. Do the right thing. Be a good neighbor. Be a good tenant. And answer up with full disclosure. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see why he was on the commercials. Yeah. Rich Benito and then Scott Lane, please. Welcome, Mr. Benito.
Welcome. Hello, Madam Mayor and everyone. I guess you can see now that you've kind of made a deal with the devil. Now what do? You know, they have one of the largest, sleaziest law firms in the country. So what is Santa Clara? Do we have the appropriations to do the same? Best of luck. This is going to be tough, but we're all behind you. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Scott Lane, and then Howard Gibbons, the hot dog dude.
Hello, Ms. Mayor and City Council, City staff, and the 49ers. I'm glad to be here. This really is a marriage of equals, or actually it should be. For better or worse, an agreement was made for this, whether you supported Jay or didn't support Jay. Whether you supported for $150 million or what I would call the bait and switch that turned into $850 million that Santa Clara Plays Fair. So at one point, the 49ers and the city got together and they actually sued Santa Clara Plays Fair. So there is a past history. But I think we need to look past that and say we have a new stadium oversight manager hopefully coming on. I think the problem is we don't know what we don't know. I think that's what the city council and the mayor and the staff are saying. If you can't have it off the 49ers, I would suggest a third site. These are very complicated issues. Anyone that's looked at a lot of budgets, a lot of things get rolled up, as Teresa O'Neill said, and it is really key that there needs to be a lot of information consumed, and it takes time. If it's a third-party location that has to make it happen, make it happen. There's a lot of he said, she said. I mean, but the bottom line is, look at what the 49ers have been happy about. They've saved hundreds of millions of dollars by us doing this. They're now worth $2 billion for a team. They have a ground lease that is $26,500. They ignored people that said we needed above-grade creek trail closures, and that creek trail is closed all the time. They saved tens or $100 million. Who knows what they saved there. But the key is, how do we do going forward? What do we do? I think we can't have a public counseling session or intervention like the last 2 weeks have been. I think we need to go forward, get the stadium oversight manager and maybe a staff, maybe with that, and go to a third-party location and really do a deep dive, not just now, but what are we missing? You know, what is going on? We don't know. Could the city recommend doing things differently? Could we, you know, make marketing, as was mentioned here? Could we save some money? We don't know. I mean, we could be out millions of dollars, and we just simply don't know it. Thank you.
Thank you. Howard Gibbons and then Howard Myers.
Hello.
Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I'm actually here to thank the mayor and the council and the city manager and the Santa Clara Police Department for dealing with the problem I've had out there with those illegal vendors. I haven't had them so far, and it's really great to be able to make a living, pay my bills. And I came in here last week, and all the hatred and the vile things were being said about you council people and the mayor. And I stood up and I defended you. I said, no, you have a job to do. You are hired by the people of your city. I looked at the vote review, latest back from the votes. Teresa O'Neill, Debbie, and Kathy there, you guys came away with over 50% of the vote, and some of you had 4 people running against you. That is a killing. People ought to understand that you are hired by the people, you're there on a mandate by the people, and stick with that with the people. Now, because I came in here and said good things about you, I have financially found out that I am not getting business from the people from the stadium employees anymore. They used to run by on their carts and they'd grab food and go on. As of last Tuesday, I have not sold one item to an employee. They may be protesting me, but that's okay. I will give my sacred fortune for democracy. You guys are standing up for the people, and that's what it's all about. And I don't care if I make a dime off of them anymore. As long as I have your support, I'll give you my support. And this is the first time I ever put any type of thing of support on my body. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really sorry to hear that. That's just shameful. And everyone needs to go buy your hot dogs now, right? They need to go, because that's really awful. Mr. Myers?
Even, yeah, it makes me want a hot dog, too.
Yes. Are you open? All right. Mr. Myers?
Yes, I want you to know that we know that, Madam Mayor and the council, we know that you support us, and we want you to know that we support you. We appreciate it. Just for the record, I also had no on J signs grow legs during the middle of the night, and I had to put mine on top of my motorhome. What we're talking about tonight is a business contract. It's governed by contract law. Now, it's hard for me to believe that with all the lawyers that the 49ers have, that Manco signed a contract without knowing what it said or what they were required to do. I mean, I just strange. But I'm a generous guy. I have suggestions for Manco. First, hire better lawyers. Hopefully you have some campaign money left to do that with. Okay, you probably don't. Singing chorus, okay. Second suggestion, follow the contract. Get it? Okay, I mean, I don't know, what are they trying to hide? Like 30,000 emails or something? I don't know. But the city has no appetite to manage the stadium, but even less of an appetite for being pushed around by employees and contractors. Stick to your guns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't have any other cards. Anybody that'd like to speak, please just line up. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Tino Silva. I want to make it clear that I didn't pay Bert to say that, so it won't be on my 460. I just want to make sure everybody knows that. The relationship with the Niners over the past 2 years has been anything but pleasant. Last week, I find it despicable that the Niners would bus in hundreds of employees that depend on the stadium for their livelihood and have them believe they're in jeopardy of losing their jobs because the mayor and council are executing their fiduciary responsibility in accordance with the contracts that were signed 5 years ago. And let me be clear, no one insinuated the integrity, dedication, or work ethic of these folks who make Levi Stadium one of the best venues to visit in the NFL was ever in question. But tonight, I'm not here to place sole blame on the Niners. In fact, I fundamentally believe we also have ourselves to blame for the predicament that we're in today. So much time has been focused on Niners that we fundamentally lost our focus on who we should also be holding accountable, our city staff. It's true the Niners have been less than cooperative in this fact-finding process, but the real issue is why our city manager, city attorney, and director of finance have looked the other way for 2.5 years. They have not done the job they were entrusted to do. Instead, they sat quietly by while the mayor was viciously attacked right in front of them because she was doing the job that they should have been doing from day one, which is to ensure that our city and arguably the Niners are being treated fairly under the terms and conditions of our stadium agreement. I've sat in this chamber over the past 2 years and often wondered who our city staff works for, and I'm sure many citizens feel the same way. How can our Director of Finance not know the revenues and expenditures of non-stadium events for over 2.5 years? Why isn't he reporting to the council that he is not getting this critical information? If you read his memo dated November 15th, he states that his staff spent 79 hours reviewing the financial results of non-NFL events. If this is true, why do we have nothing to show for it? Or why don't we have anything to show for it? I'm aware there's plenty of blame to go around, and I'm confident in due time this issue will resolve itself. However, the bigger issue is how do we collectively stop this from happening again in the future? And my recommendation is to review the priorities, commitment, and competence of our city staff. We cannot afford to fall asleep at the wheel again. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward, and if anybody else would like to line up, welcome.
Oh, my name's Thomas Mayer. You seem to not understand what the Niners are trying to say, so I'll translate it for you. You know, little darling, don't worry your pretty little head. We'll give you all the money that you're due. Thank you.
Thank you for that interpretation. Please come forward. Welcome.
Good evening. Some of the 49ers said they've presented a lot of this information to staff. I'd like to, and this is a formal request, I'd like to know who to staff they presented to. The city attorney tonight started out with a whole lot of information. I'd like to know who he's working for, because I think his presentation tonight was deplorable. And what Tino just said really sums up a lot of my questions of who is city staff working for and why are they not doing the job that they should be doing for the city of Santa Clara. I think that city council has staff and that staff has let us down. We've got the 49ers, we've got the fox in charge of the hen house. I myself said it was a big mistake to have hired the tenant to look after the landlord's property. It was a formula for a disaster, and it was only a matter of time before we had that disaster. They don't follow the rules. They put their scoreboard up too high. They put their bridges on our creek trail. They didn't build the pedestrian bridge they were supposed to for the EIR. And now they don't even have a business license. This isn't even a good Saturday Night Live skit. And it just gets to be, if it wasn't so serious, it's almost comical. I'm sitting here listening to all the BS going on about it's embedded in the budget. Well, when that budget was presented, we all stood around saying, well, what's the $10 million for? The director of finance should have never accepted that figure without having that backup. That was irresponsible. It's our stadium. When he talks about our security, hello, you didn't want to own a stadium. It's ours. The non-NFL events, those are ours. Thank you for your concern, but they're our concerns, not yours. They work for us. I'll end with my favorite. Those that have nothing to hide, hide nothing. Are they committing fraud, embezzlement, stealing? What are they hiding? Turn over our documents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Michelle Ryan, and I'm here speaking as an individual. What we are dealing with now is what I and many others tried to warn this city council about starting 10 years ago. When a former mayor talked about how the city and the 49ers were moving from dating to an engagement, I knew we were in trouble. It's a bad idea to envision a business deal as a romantic relationship. But this debacle has brought to light some interesting questions. Did the city award this management contract without conducting an open bid process? Is there a disqualifying conflict of interest that the Manco manager is also an employee of the 49ers? If Manco is working for us, then can they consider any of their work product produced for us proprietary to them? Doesn't anything that they produce as part of this contract belong to us? Do we need to get an intellectual property lawyer on board to deal with this? It does seem clear, as I and many others have said, that we need to bring in some reinforcements, some experts in this field to straighten out the problems with this contract. We've heard about some documents that aren't released at other stadiums, but those examples were not in California, and California law is pretty clear. I won't have time to read all of this, but from Cal Cities, this is a quotation from them. As part of the award and administration of public contracts, businesses will often give local agencies information that the business would normally consider to be proprietary. There are 3 exemptions that businesses often use to attempt to protect this proprietary information. However, California's strong public policy in favor of disclosure of public records precludes local agencies from protecting most business information. Both the official information privilege and the public interest exemption require that the public interest in non-disclosure clearly outweighs the public interest in disclosure. While these provisions were designed to protect legitimate privacy interests, California courts have consistently held that when individuals or businesses voluntarily enter into the public sphere, they diminish their privacy interests. It is not clear at all that these documents, I would argue right now, are public documents. Even if they're held by Manco, they are public documents right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else like to speak? If so, please come forward. Welcome.
I think all goodwill towards the city and the people of Santa Clara by the 49er management had gone out the window the day they passed Measure J. Every interaction with the city has always been through the lens of how much they can milk the tax base. The city isn't a charity, nor are the 49ers needy. The contracts are law, and the law should be followed. 1, when they tried to land grab the soccer park for pennies, all the hand-waving a good relationship was soured. 2, they are strong-arming us into rent reset and arbitration, which would cost the city $200 million in lost revenue. 3, there is non-compliance with a civil grand jury recommendation to complete a full financial audit, which they've been stonewalling the auditors. And 4, there is non-compliance with the quarterly financial reporting required for non-NFL events that the city is entitled to a share of the revenue. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But fool us 4 times, shame on all of us. This isn't about political grandstanding. As a regular citizen, I am so angry at the fact that the 49ers are suckling off the teat of our tax dollars. I will not stand to see my hard-earned money in taxes go to a billion-dollar private enterprise whose leader has the Saddam touch, the opposite of the Midas touch, and who's completely run what was a glorious team into the ground. His attitude of self-entitlement has soured the relationship the team had with San Francisco and Candlestick. He's driven away the best coach we've ever had in Harbaugh. He's turned the team from one of the best in the league to literally one of the worst. He's ripped off the residents and leadership of the team's home city here in Santa Clara. He's tried to rig our local elections and buy out our council members. He's even pissed off his own next-door neighbors in Los Altos by building his private chalet, blocking their view. And he's made the team and our city the laughingstock of the world. I won't have any of it. Jed York can screw up everything else in his life, but he does not own our city. We, the residents, do.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like to speak? Please come forward. It's a tough act to follow.
Maybe I'll just stand here for 2 minutes. Let them think about that. Lou Faria, I wasn't in town for the last meeting, and I'm glad I didn't come to it. I saw it on TV, and I was totally disgusted. The way that the council members were talked to. I personally want to apologize from my point of view that we all do not feel like that. 3 of you were elected with a good sum of votes. We trust you, and we hope that you will continue to earn our trust. The people have criticized, I don't want, so much has been said, but I know when you first started the audit, people said, we're spending so much money on an audit. Now, I have belonged to over 100 homeowners organizations, And each year, they have an audit. That's tiddly money compared to what we're dealing with the 49ers. We should have had that audit. Some people will step over $1 to pick up a nickel. And I hope that you're not settling for that nickel, that you will watch the dollars that you have been stepped over. So whether there's anything wrong going on or not, we deserve the audit, and we should continue with audits because it will keep people on the right track. So I just want to tell you, you all have my support, and I want to thank you for what you're doing for the city.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Liz Kashishin. Manco tonight has stood up here and they've positioned themselves as the experts. They have the experience, they have the background, blah, blah, blah. They signed the contract. They signed the contract in which they stipulated that they were going to provide specific documentation. It does not say that you will extrapolate without any broken down detail from a half-page budget these other documents. It states that they will provide these documents. They, the experts, signed a contract saying that they will provide these documents. That's basic contract law. Follow your contract law. Do what you said you're going to do. And that's all anybody's asking for.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. Stadium Authority Board. I think that last speaker sort of put it all in perspective, that we are just looking at the contract. We want to follow the contract. In order to do that, unfortunately, we've come to this situation that wasn't developed overnight or even last week. This situation started quite a long time ago, and it culminated with the beginning of our Measure J compliance audit. Once we did have that audit, it started to bring up issues, and this management agreement was one of the major issues that it brought up. One of the reasons we have meetings every couple of weeks is really to find out and get a status report of what's happening so that we can correct things as we go along. Because the audit now, because of the difficulties getting information from the 49ers, is going to be delayed longer than probably December or January, far past where we wanted it to be. But we've also, uncovered some issues immediately. One, that we're using general fund money on the stadium, which is a violation of Measure J, and that we just don't know how much yet. So we'll have to wait for the end of the audit to find out how much money we've been using and how that money will be repaid by the 49er organization. The second thing is we had no overall direction from the city manager, previous city manager, in terms of direction to our city employees. We've corrected that. And with the help of the auditors, Harvey Rose, we've corrected that. A city manager directive has gone out to all of our employees just as of recently, because nothing existed for the past 2.5 years. Unfortunately and shockingly, nothing existed. So we're correcting that. Next, we find the stadium management agreement, that the documents in the management agreement that the management co agreed to have not been provided and not been delivered to the stadium authority board, staff. We physically don't have those documents in our possession, and they're required in this agreement. So as we go along, we're trying to correct what's happened, because nothing has taken place in the last 2.5 years. Granted, we've gotten some information, some limited information, half-page budgets and things like that. We have spent many hours trying to make sense of what we've had, what we've received. We have many agreements. We are forced, the stadium authority is forced to comply with the agreements that we signed, that maybe some are not as favorable to the stadium authority as we would like, but we have to stick by the agreements that we signed. We are asking the same of Management Co. to stick by the agreements that you signed. It goes both ways. We both have to comply with the law, follow the agreements. It's as simple as that. There's a lot of, dog and pony show last week and all these sort of diversionary tactics. I'd like to bring it straight back down to what it is. There's an agreement, they signed it, they're not complying with it, It's up to us to take the next step to inform them, you have to comply with this. The good and positive thing for Management Co. is they'll have 30 days to give us the information. And then once they do, and we have it in our possession, then we can move on. And there's no default. But if they don't, we have a duty to further pursue other avenues, other legal avenues. That's what we have to do. Unfortunately, I hope it doesn't get there. I hope that all the documents that are required in this agreement that they agreed to are delivered. It's just as simple as that. If they're delivered, we don't have a problem. If they're not, we have a problem. So I think that, I'm recommending that the council take the step to notify them that these documents must be delivered to the Stadium Authority. I don't see anything in the agreement that tells us that they're confidential, that we have to go to their offices to look at them, and this board may or may not have the opportunity. I still didn't get a clear answer. How is this board going to be able to see these documents and report to our public that we're confident that the numbers are legitimate? I can't say that now without just a lack of being able to see them. So I think with the step that we're recommending to take is one that will, just bring us down the path of contract compliance. Council? Authority Board? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So to kind of put a capper on, some of the thoughts that I had, one of the things that occurred to me at the beginning of this meeting, and like I said, my motivation is wanting to make the stadium as successful as possible in a way that will make all of us, the sentiments, I think that a lot of people in Santa Clara were very proud that the stadium was built, and so I want us to continue to be proud of it, and that's, partially why I have, from early on have asked a lot of questions about this. Because, I think one of the thoughts that occurred to me, and in that you mentioned the election. Well, there was an election also in the city of Cupertino a couple weeks ago, and there was some issues about, a lot of us of a certain age remember when Valco Mall was like the preeminent mall. I can remember I used to come back from work in Palo Alto, and I'd get off the bus, and I'd go upstairs from the bus area to go and spend a few hours after work at Valco, and it was like the place to go. Well, what is it now? It's practically a tomb, a tomb to bad management and not looking forward to the future and where do things go. And so I don't want us to have a Valco. And I'm not saying that we're there now, but if that's why it's got to be a collaborative management process. Like I said, we did not turn over the title to the stadium when we entered into contracts. And it's not even really, it is kind of a partnership, but it's really not. I mean, they are getting paid to manage that facility for us. They're getting a fee and they're getting a percentage. And, and we don't even know what that is, what they're getting, because we can't see the numbers, so we don't even know what they're getting paid. So as much as, and I hope that if we do take action here, that it will be a sign that we're very serious, and that, maybe we all need to go to group therapy to figure out how to work together. And, we have some other processes going on, and I also agree. I think, unfortunately, I think the construction of the stadium seemed to go very well, even though we have, it appeared to, and the takeout financing worked well, and I know a lot of the community was very split on that issue, and so the way that we kind of repair some of those wounds is to make sure that we're doing the darndest best job we can to manage it and return on investment for the community, and that it is a positive and not a negative influence in their lives. And also, it's too bad that so much of the energy of the council, as was mentioned, we have so many other exciting opportunities and things to improve life for people in our community, and we unfortunately have to spend a tremendous amount of time here. But I am an optimist. I do believe that we can make this turn around, but I do think, and I was the one last week who asked for a delay, At least our auditors were able to get in there. But I think to convey the seriousness of the situation, I would like to make a motion that we do send a letter of a notice of breach of the management co-agreement. And it does have a cure period in there, and there's a couple of different options under the contract. And I hope that we will come out of this in a, there's also dispute resolution processes. We're also already in a arbitration situation, and maybe some of these differences can be, kind of worked out also through that process. So that is my motion, that we do send a letter of breach of agreement on the Manco to the representatives of the management company.
Second.
Vice Mayor O'Neill, I know that you've prepared a notice, and so would it be this notice?
It would
that-
be,
It would be similar to this
Similar
notice.
form, and we'd have to add the specific items.
It's on your front of you.
Oh, here's one.
Oh, sorry about
No,
that.
I wrote, something I wrote.
Also, if we could get this letter out tomorrow.
Okay, we're going to have to do some, city attorney will have to.
It's just a standard. We'll be able to give you a copy of it. A copy of the
We
letter.
don't have it. Where is it?
I wrote it right before the meeting.
Okay.
Just a draft she'll give to the city attorney, and for completion, because you have to list the
Yeah.
items that are
Yeah, I
in
didn't have time
default.
to do all that.
All right, Councilmember Caserta?
There's a second on the floor, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so my comments, as I've said before, our values are manifest in the actions that we take, and as elected officials, our actions are in the public. And as an elected official, we have to do a balancing act. And I just got to come from what I see. I see the Niners as a philanthropic partner when it comes to our school district, specifically the Santa Cruz School with STEM. As a former coach in this district, how philanthropic they've been. At the same time, I vigorously campaigned for Councilmember Watanabe, Davis, and O'Neill, and the public spoke. Absolutely. I think this council, the last 8 months, has come together a lot better, and I think the community sees that. I really thought what Mr. Vartan said today about the comments said last week, I think this motion and the second this motion gives us an opportunity to all be better. And that includes all of us here that blog and say things we would never say to people in front of each other. I challenge all of us to do a better job there. I challenge myself and all of us to do a better job in a relationship with the 49ers, because they're going to be our partner for a long time. I've actually gone to events at the stadium, whether it's concerts, whether it's WrestleMania, whether it's football games, and I'm a Raider fan. And our stadium and that experience is top-notch. I feel safe at that stadium. I enjoy myself at that stadium. And part of this deterioration of the relationship resides with us on this dais. Just for example, right here, why did not all of us get this letter? Why does our staff not have this letter? I'm not indicting anyone, but we need to do a lot better job, and it starts with us here. People tonight have a right as a government teacher to say whatever they want, but to say that our staff somehow is unprofessional, that our staff somehow is not working for all of us, I know these people. I know our city attorney, I know our city manager, I know Gary personally. These are good people. So I would really, really, really ask you to do a better job in what you say. With all that said, I really, really receive your frustration. And as I challenge you all to be better, I challenge us to be more collaborative. I also challenge the 49ers to actually embrace this criticism and take a step back and realize that we need to maybe do a better job at the grassroots level, not just with the 25, 30, 35 people that are here or the 2 or 3 that continually come here, but we all need to do a better job. We all need to do a better job. So I'm going to support this motion because I value transparency, I value information, I value collaboration, and I think this motion has an opportunity to do that. But make no mistake about it, we all need to do a better job.
Okay, Councilmember Watanabe or Davis? Did you?
What's the matter?
Yeah, we have to have it. Councilmember Watanabe, did you want to speak?
Thank you. No, did you want to say something, Dominic, or Ms.? Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you were finished.
Are you finished?
Okay.
Do you want to
I'm glad, I know it's late and it's a lot of people have gotten to say what they needed to say tonight, and I think that's what's really important, that everybody needs to feel like they're being heard, and they feel they need to know that their council is listening to them, but more importantly, I think they need to know that the 49ers are listening to them as well. We allowed the 49ers to come into the city of Santa Clara. 60% of the people of Santa Clara allowed the 49ers to come here, and we need to just continue to work together, hold each other accountable, all of us, as Councilmember Caserta just said, we need to hold all of ourselves accountable and keep Santa Clara a special place. So I'm glad that we've had this opportunity to just hammer this thing out, and I support the motion as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis.
Okay, just for clarification purposes, I did second this. So we are not going with the draft that you have. We have a draft that is coming from Vice Mayor O'Neill, and we'll have additions to it for the specifications that were.
Sorry, I just did it right for the meeting. I'm sorry.
Okay, so in here, we will state what we feel and what the audit committee and also the auditor, not the so-called auditor, is going to show what we're looking to get from the Niners.
We have to go back through the.
And we have to go back through this list. So just to give this to you, Ren, could you, I just want to make sure that we're really clear in what this has to do, or how it's just clearly stated. And the other thing that I really want to know about is why don't they have a business license? Can somebody answer that for me? I mean, is that?
Well, if in fact that's, and we'll verify that, but if there's an issue with the business license, we'll treat it like any other code enforcement matter and issue a citation if that's appropriate. The business license doesn't imply any right to do business, it's a tax. We'll get that cured.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that one up too. Last week was really disappointing to me. Lisa is our mayor. Sorry, Lisa. Yes, she's appointed because we have a change in command, but she's doing a job, and to be blatantly attacked last week was just totally uncalled for. I just think that we have to have a little bit of decorum, and yes, we have our differences, but you don't come here and play it out and bash the mayor because you think that you don't think she's doing a good job. So I guess we need to do some growing up here and work together and get this audit done. I mean, that's what this was about, not some diversionary tactics that all these people were going to lose their jobs and not be fed. I mean, that was just ridiculous. So going forward, I hope that we're going to be adults and we're going to finish this audit and we're going to do and be responsible to the residents of Santa Clara. Because yes, I was in the commercial for Measure J. I wanted this stadium here because I thought it was going to be a great economic stream. I just thought it was going to be the best thing for the city of Santa Clara. But I have second thoughts and reservations as to what is going on here. We are not 3 years old. This is not a sandbox. We're here to do official business. And I'm really tired of what happened, and I went home last week and could not believe that we were attacked. And why? Just give the documents. Let's finish the audit. I just don't understand why this is taking so long. I don't understand when they come up in front of us and they say, I'm going to get you this, I'm going to get you that, we'll take care of this. Well, it just seems like a lot of empty promises. And I think we just need to sit down and figure out either we have a monthly stadium authority meeting with everybody in the same room, or we find a way to work together. This is a marriage, And that's how I'm going to look at this. But if we have to go into mediation to make this thing work, then we have to make this thing work. I'm just tired of this stuff that has happened. I don't think that our mayor is a bully, nor is she delusional or whatever was said about her. It was pretty obnoxious, and I'm really sorry that even happened. But I second this motion, and I just hope that going forward, that we are not going to be doing this anymore. And thank you, Teresa, for changing this draft letter, because I thought the first one wasn't, I guess, clear enough what we really needed to go forward with this, and those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make a few comments. I wanted to thank members of the Stadium Authority Board here, because I know that what we're trying to do and how we're trying to protect our stadium authority and our city, ultimately, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts. And I want to thank the members up here for really standing up for what they believe in and standing up for their city. I think that, it's important because you see that we all have to, take personal attacks, and I understand that, and I try to look past that, because ultimately, it's the residents that we represent, and you have to really dig deep sometimes to be able to do that, but I think all of us have the ability to do that. I know I personally have teenagers, as I said last week, so that's nothing. Call me anything you want. So, but the point is that we are this is business, and it's an agreement that they agreed to, and we're holding them accountable. I still am a very pro-stadium person. I believe that we can make it successful, but I believe that we have to have a say in the future of this stadium, of this property, and how it's run and operated. And through our management agreement, minus some of the other agreements, this is the only opportunity we have to weigh in on how we see this stadium being operated in the future, especially through the marketing plans and the events, the non-NFL events. We really want to look at which ones are more successful for our city and that generate more money, maybe less public safety than some others. How are we going to do this going forward as partners? We have not, for 2.5 years, gotten the type of marketing plans or some of the other things that are mentioned in here. We haven't had the ability to sit down and be a real partnership to go forward and really, right the ship here. We haven't had that ability. We talk about our staff. I question what's happened in the last 2.5 years and how come there wasn't any information. I know that I was on a minority of the council for many, many years, but I think now we have a council that is really trying to push things forward. It may be uncomfortable right now because of the audit. It's going to be an uncomfortable situation when you have a Measure J compliance audit. I get that. So as these things come forward and we see the deficiencies and where things have gone wrong, we're trying to fix it. So this may not be the last uncomfortable thing. I imagine there's going to be more going forward until we actually get the documents, get the information, and allow the ability for our auditor to be in there and to really dig deep to see what are we complying with Measure J? Are we complying with the law? That's all we're asking for. So guess what? We can take all the personal attacks. Go ahead. You've done it. Keep doing it. I assume you're going to keep doing it. But it's not going to stop us from getting to the truth, getting to the agreements, getting to the numbers, and protecting our city. I also want to thank the public, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't even be here right now. We wouldn't even be, having the support to try to get these documents and get to the truth if it wasn't for you. So thank you so much for spending all your time. You probably never imagined you would come to a meeting and spend so many hours talking about an audit and some of this type of information. So thank you. And all I can say is we appreciate your support. We appreciate our community, and we appreciate you staying involved, because this is not the end of it. It's going to continue on. And I think with your strength and support, we will have the strength and support to really stand up for ourselves. And ultimately, at the end of the day, as Vice Mayor O'Neill said, we want to make it right. We want to get the management structure in place so that we don't have to do all this. There's so many things we want to do in the city, so many opportunities we want to work on, and we're spending an enormous amount of time on this. So we want to set the structure, but it's going to be a little bit of a rocky road between now and the time we do that, so bear with us. I support the motion, obviously, and let's get the documents and move forward.
The only point is,
Yes, Vice Mayor O'Neill.
I know the city clerk wants us to clarify, you said something about the time period when we want the letter to go out. I mean, it is the day before Thanksgiving, in terms of staff, but are we able to work on it tomorrow?
Tomorrow. There's no time like the present. It's just a matter of listing the documents, and I would ask that our city auditor work with our city attorney to make sure that those documents are properly listed.
Tomorrow.
Is that part of the motion, part of the second?
Yes.
All right.
Mayor, could I get some additional
Yes, sir.
clarification? Tomorrow's not a problem, but just so we characterize the ask correctly, what as I understand the Vice Mayor's motion, it is the documents identified on the checklist to be physically delivered to City Hall.
Per the management agreement, yes.
Is that
Right.
correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Lights on the motion, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute break.